All right. Week 15 big game breakdown. We have 4 games in particular that we want to break down in length. Some of them have more implications than others, but 4 games in particular that we want to break down, and then we'll give off some rapid fire picks and some of our model's best bets. So, no time wasted. Cowboys go to Buffalo. Bills are 1.5 point home favorites, and that seemed to have drawn a lot of attention already with the line. I think a lot of people really expected the Cowboys to be marginally favored in this game rather than the Bills, but Bills 1.5 point home favorites, 48.5 point total. Cowboys won 33-13 on Sunday Night Football. In the process, the Cowboys took over first place of the NFC East, really kind of tied, but if they can't keep it by just winning out. So the Eagles are right there step by step and actually have an easier schedule, and they have all of the head-to-head in their favor. But as it stands right now, Cowboys hold first place in the NFC East. So Bills, like we mentioned, do or die. They have to win out just about. They're sitting at 7-6 right now. They really, really need this game. So with that said, a lot on the line for both of these teams. Cowboys are still somewhat fighting for the first seed. They really need San Francisco to lose a few games, as well as the Eagles. But nonetheless, going to be the most fun game on the slate. Before I get into any of the numbers, Brendan, Bills 1.5 at home. Snap reaction to this line, snap reaction to this game. Who do you think is going to win, and who do you think covers?
So per Action Network, I've got 2.5 here, which is
okay. So it's already moved.
It's already moved. But yeah, man, I am gonna change my mind on what I was saying on the Bills based on the momentum that they have right now. And this is truly, I just looked at the schedule. The first, Dallas plays inside. This is their first cold weather game, like for real, because they didn't play it like when they were away, they were playing teams in California like this month. Mm-hmm. So I think the Bills get it done. I think they cover the 2.5. I think they ride the momentum. I think it's a shock to Dallas. And like strictly on the cold weather being outside, Buffalo practices and that Dallas hasn't been there all year. This is their first one. I think that Dallas is a little stale, and Buffalo comes in here and continues that win, tried to make that playoff push.
Interesting.
So
the one thing I'll say in particular to this matchup is the Bills have struggled on the defensive side just due to all of the injuries that they've had throughout the year. And again, I mentioned this in multiple shows in the past, but it really boils down to the game that they played in London or Germany, whichever one, against the Jaguars, where a lot of their key players like Tre'Davious White and Matt Milano went out due to injury for the season. And it's really shown. But all things considered, they're doing the most with very little. In fact, offensive EPA per play allowed, Buffalo is ranked 10th in the entire league. So with the roster that they have, they're performing really, really well. Now, Dallas, of course, they have one of the best defenses in the league. They have the third best defense in terms of offensive EPA allowed. We flip it over on the other side. Both offenses are playing at an elite level. Buffalo, third best offensive EPA per play. Dallas, fourth best offensive EPA per play. Dak just took over as the MVP candidate, or the highest or the best odds to win the MVP for this year. So it's going to be a dogfight, and we see that in the total a little bit. It's the highest totaled game on the slate. But I can't lie to you, man. I was kind of surprised when I saw this line and how Vegas thinks that the Bills are going to win and how it's actually going in favor of the Bills. We're seeing some money pour in on the Bills, which surprises you, man, because my personal projections have had, or on a neutral field, would have Dallas -4. And that's a 6. As it stands right now, that's a 6-point swing. And so that relatively shocks me, because I think that with the way that the Cowboys are playing, I don't think that the Bills are going to be able to, keep them under 20. So it's going to be a dogfight. I think that the Cowboys are going to come in really confident, but you make a good point. The the environment that they're going to be playing in makes the world's difference. And I think that we're going to see that, and we're going to really test Dak Prescott and company, because it's December in Buffalo. It's going to be freezing.
It's going to be so cold.
The conditions are going to be miserable.
Horrible.
So I like, as much as I want to take the Cowboys, like, that's one of the things that's really holding me back. But on paper, the Cowboys are the better team, straight up. And my projections show that on a neutral field, they would favor the Cowboys by nearly 4.5 points. So I think that Buffalo's defense is overachieving in comparison with the circumstances that they've had. And so as much as I want to take the Cowboys, and I think they are the better team, you just have to be wary of the conditions. And Buffalo is more suited for that. They have they're kind of getting their groove back. But this honestly is going to come down to a coaching battle. And it brings up the intriguing point. Who do you think is going to outduel the other coach? You think it's Sean McDermott? You think Mike McCarthy? And it's just like really boils down to who do you think is better with X's and O's? If you had to take one, Sean McDermott's defensive mind or Mike McCarthy's offensive mind?
I just think that it's a perfect scenario for Vegas to make a lot of money, honestly, because how did the Cowboys win recently? Airing the ball out. And that changes everything with the weather. Like, how it sucks to catch a cold ball.
Yeah.
Like, think about like if Dak is back there and he throws a pass and hits his hand on a helmet. Like, brother's out. Like, there's so many things that can happen in those sort of cold weather games where people can get hurt. And I just think it's a perfect scenario for everyone to be looking at Dallas and what they've been doing. And for them to be underdogs in this game, I just think, like, Vegas doesn't know, but they do. They're smart. They don't know, but they're smart. And I think I don't know what the splits look like, but I think that there'd be a hell of a lot of money put on Dallas to cover this game. And that's why I'm going against it. The weather matters. It does matter. And the Bills are really hot and they have their backs against the wall. And I think that they're going to be able to get it done. Numbers aside.
That's a good point, because there is no team that is more bet on than the Dallas Cowboys. Hands down. It's crazy. So
it's America's team.
I know. I really do want to take the Cowboys here. I think they are the better team, and I think given the circumstances, I think that they would win, hands down. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough challenge. It's going to be a tough road, tough environment nonetheless. Playing at the Bills Stadium, even in good weather conditions, is hard because of the atmosphere. Bills Mafia shows out more better than anybody, it feels like. So, but it's going to be a dogfight. Truthfully, I think this game plays under. I don't think there's 48 points scored.
Oh, I could see that for sure.
I think my projections would put it this way. They think it's around a 45 point total, and they would, on a neutral field, they would have Cowboys scoring 24 and Buffalo scoring 20. So neutral field,
yeah. I mean, the weather even changes, like, kicking conditions. The hold.
Yeah. Brandon Aubrey is a stud, though.
It's insane. But yeah, I like your call on the under a lot. That makes total sense with the narrative that I see it going. So I can ride with that.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a dogfight. I mean, both teams are actually fighting for a lot when you really think about it. Cowboys, obviously they kind of secured their spot at the playoffs nonetheless, but they want to fight for that number one seed, because it would be monumental for the Cowboys to have to force everybody else to come to Jerry World and play. When you think that the last time they lost at home was the very first game of the 2022 season, that's insane. It's insanity. Yeah. So, lot to play for there, a lot to prove there. Of course, the Bills, again, do or die situation. I think that they would edge them out in a tough environment against the boys, even though I do think the Cowboys are the better team. Don't get me twisted. I think they should win.
You're twisted.
Will they? We'll find out. We'll find out. Next game I want to talk about. Ravens go to the Jaguars. Jaguars. What the heck is wrong with the Jaguars? They just dropped one to the Joe Flacco-led Browns.
Legend.
Elite.
He looks just like Stefanski. They literally look the exact same. The coach and the quarterback. They look. I saw it.
Father and son, baby. Father and son.
I don't know who's the father. Like Joe Flacco might be older though.
Jaguars drop another one in the dog pound against the Browns. Jaguars are 3.5-point home underdogs against one of the top teams in the AFC, the Ravens. Now, the Ravens are still fighting for that number 1 playoff spot. Miami currently holds it, depending on what happens tonight. But Miami's 2 touchdown favorites against the Titans. I don't expect them to drop this game. So, now, still a lot on this line. It's a fight atop the AFC. Even though the Jaguars dropped a game, they're still 9-4. Ravens are 10-3. They're 1 game behind the Ravens. So, again, it's going to be a fun game. A lot tied to this game in terms of playoff seeding, and the Jaguars really need to bounce back. So hopefully they can have Trevor Lawrence get a little bit more healthy leading into this game. Looks like he got beat up, man. He was tackled a ton behind the line of scrimmage, sacked a lot, especially on that ankle. I just didn't think he should be out there playing, but hey, what do I know? And the Ravens, phenomenal offensive job by Lamar Jackson and company, especially without Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely stepped in and filled that role perfectly. Zay Flowers really ascending himself. Odell Beckham finding a spot in this offense. And I feel like they're just kind of putting it all together. They're rotating the 3 running backs in a grand fashion. Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, and Keaton Mitchell all have sustained roles in this offense that really play a part. So, going to be a fun game. I was a little bit surprised. I would have expected Jaguars plus 5.5 in this game, especially due to the way that their defense has been playing or their lack of defensive performance. But before I get into any of the numbers and any more of a breakdown, Brendan, what do you think about this? What do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, let me just explain. I think the Ravens are going to cover. The Ravens proved, the Rams are weird, but the Ravens proved that they can win football games. No matter how they do it, by how much, they can win football games. They're a really good team. I need them in the Super Bowl. But I want to point out the Jaguars' wins this season because they haven't beaten one good team. Okay? They've beaten the Colts. They've beaten the Falcons. I lied. They beat one good team, the Bills. Colts, again, the Saints, the Steelers, the Titans, and the Texans. And they've lost to good teams as well as the Jake Browning-led Bengals, the Browns. Like, they don't have... Go ahead.
I will say their win against the Bills.
It's a great win.
It's
overseas.
Overseas. Bills had to stay there, though. Bills were stuck there for 2 weeks.
The Jags were stuck there. That's why I was like, I like the Jags. Okay. Yeah.
So, but that's also the game where Bills lost half their defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Matt Milano, tore his Achilles, and so
that even furthers my argument because okay. I don't think the Jaguars have beaten any good teams this year. Okay. So that's why I'm heavy on the Ravens here. The Super Bowl logo colors or whatever, like the Ravens and the 49ers colors or whatever, and that's what it's predicted like 4 years in a row. So, but I think the Ravens take care of business here. T-Law is banged up. The defense isn't playing good, and the Ravens are still hot and they're rolling. And they got Zay Flowers more involved. And honestly, I'm really impressed how well Lamar is spreading the ball out. Like without Andrews, like everybody's eating. So it's a very Monken's got a good system going there, and they've been playing very well. And I think the Ravens stay hot here.
I think he should be very well in MVP consideration if he continues to have games like he does down the stretch. But everybody will disagree with me and say he's garbage, but they don't know ball. Looking at the game, 88% of the bets are on Ravens minus 3.5. 92% of the handle is on Ravens minus 3.5. Heavy favorites in terms of public betting splits on the Baltimore Ravens, kind of as expected. I think this line pushed up a little bit too. It opened so NFL lines are hard to track because they open up multiple weeks ahead. In fact, I think DraftKings is one of the few sports books. They open up lines for every single week, like at the beginning of the season. So when you see opening lines, they don't tell the whole story, but Ravens opened up at like +1 a few weeks ago. Now they've gone all the way to 3.5. So I can definitely see why the public has hammered down that line. And when you look at so obviously if you watch the show, one of my favorite things to look at is the EPA margin battle on both sides of the football. Baltimore clears it by a lot. They're 6th overall in offensive EPA per play, 2nd overall in offensive EPA per play allowed. And that's including this past game with the Rams. Jacksonville, 22nd overall in offensive EPA per play, 15th overall in offensive EPA per play allowed. So there's a big difference. There's a lot of discrepancy. And I think it should be noted. And Jacksonville secondary, man, they're playing horrible. The saving grace is Josh Allen. He's having truly like a defensive player of the year type of year. He's really wreaking havoc down in the backfield, but their secondary, man, they're struggling. We just saw Joe Flacco light their ass up. And so there's an issue when the Dusty Browns offense comes in there and hangs near 30. So there's a lot of stuff to answer for. There's a lot of stuff that this Jacksonville defense needs to answer for. With that being said, the projections like the Jaguars to win outright by a single point.
That's horrible. Scarlett, come on, buddy. Girl.
I know.
Come on, girl. Stop that.
So I'm not sure what's going on there. Again, it's not by a lot. It's seriously just by a single point. But if I had to take a stab at it, actually, I don't even know. Looking.
You know.
I don't.
Yeah, you do.
I don't. I will, but here's the thing. Disclaimer, my projections don't take into injuries, weather, or vibes. So take that.
I'm big on vibes. I'm a vibe guy.
I know. They're important. That's the thing. Is like as much as that I want to be analytically driven, vibes play a role. You can't quantify vibes straight up. So I want to throw that out there. So that's what's going on. It's there's a thing in the model that takes in like a rolling power rating almost, what you would call it. And I think that there's some bias towards the Jaguars due to their power rating that they started off with this year. And I don't think that they're the same team at the beginning of this year that they are this year, especially with Trevor Lawrence's banged up ankle. Christian Kirk is out for the rest of the regular season.
Nutsack injury.
Yeah. Exploded nutsack.
Exploded nuts.
So Christian Kirk is on IR due to exploded nutsack. And it just, it seems like some of the receiving core. Zay Jones sucks. Straight up. He's garbage. He's so bad. But Evan Ingram, baller. Ridley, I don't know what's going on with him. It seems like he's on or off. The chemistry between him and Lawrence is like hit or miss. But I think that's where some of the like model discrepancy is and what it doesn't account for and what's more baked into this Vegas line. Because obviously you have professionals that are pricing this, but I can see the Jaguars have the coaching ability and they have the roster to be able to compete with this Ravens team, especially at home. But the thing is I think the Ravens are playing way too well right now. They're one of the healthier teams in the league outside of Mark Andrews being hurt. And it's going to be great weather in Jacksonville, Florida, from what it looks like. And now that could change because it's Florida. But I think barring any, outside conditions, I see no reason why the Ravens don't come in here, run the ball, and command the entire game. I think it's a little too easy. And I hate this because this is exactly what I did with the Lions-Bears game. The projections had Chicago winning. But I said, don't overthink it. The Lions should be able to handle this team easily. And I was wrong. I was straight up wrong. And that's the approach that I'm taking here. Don't overthink it. Ravens are the better team, better roster, and better offense right now. And there's no reason that they should not go in there and just beat the shit out of the Jags. But what do I know? Projections apparently know more than I do.
Can I give you a weather report, a vibe report?
Sure.
Last week, here's the weather report. Cloudy with a chance of bad vibes for the Lions last week, and pretty good vibes for the Bears. Not that bad. Great vibes, like sunny, 75, light breeze. Vibes for the Ravens, and we've got like it's about a tornado vibe for the. Maybe not that dramatic. Light rain, probably.
Yeah, it's a little bit
chance of thunderstorms later for the Jags. That's the weather report. The weather report has Ravens -3.5.
I like it. Okay. Don't overthink it. That I feel like I would hate to come back here next week and be like, we're idiots. We should have trusted the projections, but we ride. Eagles go to Seattle, play the Seahawks. Seahawks have been playing relatively well, all things considered. Even though they've lost the past 2 weeks, they've lost to the Cowboys in a absolute shootout, one of the best games that we've seen all year. And then they lost to the 49ers. Surprisingly, Drew Lock keeps them in contention that entire game. So, all things considered, props to the Seahawks for keeping those games close against two of the best teams in the NFL. No shame there. They need a couple of good things to happen in order for them to remain in the playoff race, but they're still there. They're very well there. They have a chance. Eagles coming off of 2 really tough losses. I mean, you're talking the same thing. They actually just flip-flopped the schedule. So the Eagles played the 49ers and then the Cowboys. Well, the Seahawks played the Cowboys and the 49ers. And both teams had their way with the Eagles, and the Seahawks put up a good fight with both teams. So if you're into the transitive property, if you're into that kind of thing, the Seahawks technically would be the winner. But I hate that. If you ask anybody what my biggest pet peeve is when people use the transitive property to compare teams and be like, oh, the Commanders beat this team, therefore they're better than that team. No.
That means Kent State should be in the college football playoff, I believe, if I saw that right, by the transitive property.
Yeah.
Based on like an 8-leg math equation.
Yeah. No. So anyway, just stupid. Don't be that guy. That's all I'll say. Nonetheless, big game for both teams. I mean, Eagles, they have an easier road down the stretch. They don't have to play 2 of the toughest teams. I guess same with the Seahawks again, but Eagles are looking to get back on their feet. And if they win out and they can gain back the top of the NFC East because they hold the tiebreakers over Dallas. So they really need that because then they'll be higher seeded. And they also have a good chance for the number 1 seed still. So that's not out of contention. But big game nonetheless for both teams, more so for the Seahawks than the Eagles. But I think the Eagles are desperate for another, they need a momentum building game nonetheless. And they just feel defeated and beat up heading into this game. But Seahawks will wait and see the status of Geno Smith's groin coming into this game. That'll make a huge difference. I think this line is actually it's saying we don't know who's going to be quarterback, but we're going to be ready to adjust it either which way, depending on the news. So if Geno is back, I wouldn't be surprised if this goes to 3 or 2.5. But if Drew Lock is announced as a starter, I could see this slamming all the way down to 5.5. But before I get into any of the matchup stuff, numbers, whatnot, Brendan, do you think the Eagles can bounce back with a win in Seattle, or do you think the 12th man gets it done?
I do think the Eagles will have a bounce back here, but I'm trying to decide how they're going to win. I'm almost to the point of Goddard for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns. This is how they're going to win. But because they've got Reek Woolen and I can't remember the other dude's name. Pretty good corners. You could probably match up pretty well with Devonta Smith and AJ Brown. I think Hurts is gonna be able to use his legs pretty effectively in this game. I don't think that the Seahawks are going to be able to run the ball because both their running backs are beat up, and now they got to go into the teeth of the Georgia Bulldogs defensive line, basically. And I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball very good. I know they're at home. I think it doesn't really matter who the quarterback is. I think the Eagles are going to win, but I wouldn't take it it's at 3.5.
Yeah, it's 3.5 right now.
I wouldn't take it at 3.5, but at the same time, I'm not going to take the Seahawks either. I would like it to go to 3, and then I'd hit the Eagles. I think the Eagles get the bounce back win, but
okay. So getting off the rip, my projections they have the exact same as Vegas. It's a 3.6 spread according to my projections, and it has the Eagles are almost at 26, Seahawks at 22. Actually, right on the nose with the 48-point spread. That is also the Vegas projection for this game as well. So nothing really to take away from the projections. Unfortunately, I hate when that happens. I was like banking on the projections for some of my picks, but let me pull up some numbers really quick. I'm very, very interested to see what some of these comps are. Offensive EPA per play, Philadelphia is still a top 5 team. Seahawks are 12th. So relatively efficient, all things considered, even though they haven't popped out due to the eye test. But in what we saw when the Seahawks played the Cowboys, I think that's what I want to hone in on as well. They showed enough competency on the offensive side of the ball to be able to hang with anybody. And I think that with what we saw out of Geno Smith, we saw him kind of come back to life a little bit. This year, it feels like he's taken a step back in comparison to what he was able to do last year. But the game against the Cowboys is when he kind of stepped out of his shell. And we've seen DK Metcalf step up into the wide receiver one that we all thought he was going to be. Tyler Lockett actually had a great game last game against the 49ers, even though the 49ers have one of the best passing defenses in the league. So
disgusting.
It's kind of amazing what the Seahawks have been able to do, barring the conditions that they've been stuck in. And so that's my concern for the Eagles, because one thing that we've seen is that you can throw on the Eagles. You can actually shred them. And if I'll make a matchup comparison. If you go to our Twitter account at @Statletics_, we do matchup comparisons for the big primetime games. And I made one for the Eagles versus the Cowboys. And what it shows offensive stats where they rank in the NFL and defensive stats and where they rank in the NFL. All of the defensive stats, none of them were better than 24th. They were all bottom 4th in the league in all defensive metrics across the board. And if we flip over to the EPA margin on the defensive side of the ball, Philadelphia is 30th overall in offensive EPA per play allowed. Seahawks is 26th. They're still bad. Not as bad as Philly, but my goodness, what is going on with the Eagles defense? For how talented they are, they should not be giving up the offensive production that they've been giving up. It's just abysmal. So with this, I can't say with any confidence that the Eagles are going to win this game. In fact, I'm taking the Seahawks if they drop to 4.5, 5. I see them on some books right now. You can get them on some smaller books at +5. So Seahawks +5 for me is a safe bet at home in prime time.
I would not disagree with that, but it's not at 5. But I wouldn't disagree with that.
Well,
really. Okay. Well, I didn't talk about it that way. I talked about it the other way. But what do you say if it goes down to 3?
To 3? Depend who's playing quarterback.
Geno.
Seahawks. I think they went outright.
Oh, beer bet. Beer bet.
Okay. So are we going to do a contingent on this? Like,
let's wait, because if it were to go to 4, if it were to go to 4 or 5, I mean, you want to take it at 3.5? I would take Eagles 3.5. You would take
sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's fine. We can just do that if you want.
Okay.
But yeah, if it moves, then we won't. But
easy enough. It'll be a fun one. Now, I think that the Eagles will eventually bounce back, especially with the schedule. They get the Giants twice.
And the Cardinals.
I think they'll kind of ramp themselves back up to speed, but not this time around. So I think Seahawks went outright. Fun beer bet. So moving on, Broncos at Lions. Big game for both of these teams. Broncos, great win last week against the Chargers. Lions, tough loss against the Bears. So with all of the implications going into this, Broncos are fighting for an AFC spot in the playoffs. Lions, they were fighting for a number one seed, but now it just feels like they're, trying to hold tight to the top of their division. So Lions -4 at home in the Dome against the Broncos. We know it's kind of a joke, but in reality, it's not. Jared Goff at home in the Dome is elite. So can we expect the Lions to crush the Broncos here? Do you think the Broncos are actually going to bring it to the Lions here? Before I get into any of the numbers, let me know what's your gut feeling about this game. Do you think the Broncos take this one home, or do you think the Lions do?
This one was tough because of my upward trajectory vibe check on the Broncos, but I'm going to have to go with the Lions at home. They're not in contention to not make the playoffs, but let me look at this here. They're only 2 games up on Minnesota. I think the Lions get done here. And I think they cover, was it 4?
Yep.
I think it'll be scary for a while, but I think they'll get it in the end. I think they'll end up covering that and then keeping it in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
a little scary.
I actually think that the Lions, they cover pretty handily in this game. My projections have Lions -6 instead of Lions -4. So trusting Scarlett on this one, I think she's going to do me right here. Lions at home in the Dome, that's one thing, and I'm not basing my pick off of that, but it certainly helps. Now, flip it on the other side. Detroit still has a really, really high octane offense in certain spots. And I think this is one of those spots where they can really attack. Detroit, 8th overall in the NFL in offensive EPA per play. Detroit's only 20th. There's some. So Russell Wilson right now has one of the highest touchdown per pass attempt rate in the entire league. And I think he's due to some regression. I don't think he can keep up the production that he's doing, especially with the lack of offensive volume that they're really generating. I think they're going to have to keep up with the Lions in this game, just due to the fact that I think that the Lions will be able to score and score often. And I don't know if the Broncos would be able to do that, especially at the pace that they play. And on the flip side, looking at the defense, I know that Denver has played better defensive as of late. Let's look at the EPA margin. Offensive EPA per play allowed, Denver 24th in the league, Detroit 17th. Now, Detroit has declined as of late. Broncos, they have increased or done better over time, but they still are stuck at 24. So that tells you where they were at before and where they are at now. They're still a bottom third team in the league in offensive EPA per play allowed. They are the worst team in rushing yards allowed, dead last in rushing yards allowed. I think Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are going to have a field day against this Broncos team. I think the Lions are going to control the clock, and they're really going to lean in on the play action and expose this Broncos defense up the middle with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't think Pat Surtain's going to shadow Amon-Ra in the slot the entire time. So with a successful running game, they'll really utilize the play action, and then they'll really get the Broncos over the middle in between the hashes. And I think Detroit controls the clock. They game manage this entire game and they win by 2 touchdowns.
Jared Stink for the win.
Yeah, I mean, I
don't disagree. I don't disagree with that at all.
The Broncos, one of the hottest teams in the league, but I mean,
none.
If we take a step back, let's look at their best wins against the Chiefs team, who's significantly downgraded in comparison to the Chiefs teams we've seen in the past few years. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have Kadarius Toney on their team.
Fair. Okay, hey, let's do a little rapid fire.
I'm ready. I got my finger ready
Vikings
on action.
Vikings go to Cincinnati. They play the Jake Browning-led Bengals. Don't know who's going to play quarterback. Josh Dobbs was pulled for Nick Mullins after their horrendous offensive game last week. So don't know who's starting a quarterback, but Vikings go to the Bengals. Bengals are 3.5-point home favorites. Who you got?
No, dude, let Jake Browning shred. I'm going Bengals at home. I'm so pissed at Dobbs.
It seems like the more he learns, the worse he plays.
Oh, yeah.
That should say something about.
He's better improvising. Yeah.
I'll take Vikings there. I think they can actually get it done. Steelers go to the Colts. Colts are 2.5-point home favorites. They need a win after a tough loss to the Bengals last week. But so do the Steelers. Mitch Trubisky led Steelers. Do you think they can cover and win in Indy? Or do you think the Colts get it done?
No. I mean, I legitimately think the Colts get it done. But that also goes to me betting against the Steelers, so the Steelers win. So, Colts.
Okay. Chargers go to the Raiders without. This is Thursday Night Football. Chargers are starting Easton Stick. They are +3 road dogs. Do you think the Raiders win? Cover that 3? Do you think the Chargers can rally and get it done?
First, did you see that picture on Twitter? You know Easton is a brand of hockey stick?
Yeah.
Did you see the picture? It was like, this is the Chargers starting quarterback, and it just says Easton on the stick. That's
actually good.
Dude, it was really cool. I gotta go Raiders here.
I got it too. Projections like the Raiders.
I got to.
Okay. Bears, Browns. Browns at home in the dog pound, 3-point home favorites. You think the Bears are going to continue to roll? You think the Browns are going to continue to roll?
Browns.
Okay. Projections like the Bears this week. I'm going to rock with the Bears. I think they can keep it going, baby. Okay. Falcons go to the Panthers. This is a divisional game that really the Falcons need, even though the Panthers suck. Falcons are -3 on the road playing against the Panthers. Embarrassing spread if you're a Falcons fan. Falcons -3 on the road against the Panthers, or do you think the Panthers can actually pull out a miracle?
I'm sorry. I'm mostly doing this just to mess with you, but is that a divisional home road dog I spy?
It is. And you know what's crazy? Scarlett has this as a pick even.
Oh, I'm going Panthers.
I'm riding my team, the Falcons. I am a Falcons fan, unfortunately, but I would not be surprised if the Falcons do the most Falcons thing ever and drop this game. So, whatever. Dolphins, 10.5-point home favorites against the Jets. I'm taking the Jets in this. I don't know about you. We haven't seen them play the Titans. I don't really think that'll be a good data point anyway.
No. Yeah, that's a huge spread.
Jets?
Jets. The Dolphins have huge spreads all the time. The Jets beat they beat the Eagles and they beat the Bills in the first week of the season with Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
So I got Jets here. The MILF.
All right. Okay. Well, you heard it. Okay. So I'm moving on. I'm skipping a few games because I actually want to save some best bets for this. But the last one I wanted to bring up: Chiefs go to Gillette and play the Patriots. Patriots are 9.5-point home underdogs. Do you think that they can keep it close? I think that's too big of a spread for a Patriots team at home, even though they're garbage.
Yeah.
I haven't seen. You think they cover?
I mean, yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
My projections have this as 7. They have it at a 7-point game.
I mean, I kind of think
like
that
a 7.2.
I mean, Mahomes is the biggest baby back biatch there's ever been.
That's crazy. That's
So
crazy.
I don't know. I mean, he's gonna be mad for I don't know pride reasons or something. I don't know. Taylor Swift probably won't be there. I'll take New England.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. All right. Moving on to model best bets. We went 3-1 last week. Notably, the best picks were the Bears and the Cowboys.
Oh, Bears.
So, big pick for the model here. One of them being they think that the Rams are going to absolutely shred Commanders at home.
Ooh.
And like it's going to be ugly, like 2 touchdowns. They have this game as a 2 touchdown win for the Rams. So, model best bet. Rams -6.5, -6 on some books if you can get it. So, with that being said, on to the next one. Packers -3, and on some books where you can get it, it's 3.5 on others right now, but projections like the Packers. So, and I kind of agree with that. I think that the Bucs are a little bit overrated. I think that their win in Atlanta doesn't really say much. I'm pissed that they even pulled that off, but Packers -3.5 in Lambeau Field in prime time, or prime time. It's at 1, but at Lambeau, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. So, and then Texans +1.5 with CJ Stroud in doubt. If they do come back, or if CJ Stroud is cleared to play, if he clears concussion protocol and he's able to play, even without Tank Dell and potentially Nico Collins, he still gets Dalton Schultz back. Brevin Jordan is a beast, and Noah Brown. We'll see about the status of Noah Brown too. He went out, but all he needs is one. And I think that this team, this defense is actually better than the Titans. And I know that the Texans are on the road, but it's a big game, big matchup. I think D'Amico Ryans is going to have this team rolling. Projections like the Texans to win outright. So
let me just point out that the Texans are going to single-handedly lose me fantasy leagues because of Tank Dell, because of Nico Collins, and then CJ can't play.
I can't talk about it.
They're single-handedly going to lose me stuff. So thanks, guys. Thank you.
No, you can thank the Texans offensive coordinator for running Tank Dell up the middle as a blocker.
Yeah, thanks.
165-pound receiver up the middle as a blocker. Idiot. All right, hey, that wraps it up for this week's show, our NFL Week 15 show. We got a lot to talk about. We'll be back here next week to talk NFL Week 16 and recap the upcoming week ahead. We appreciate you listening, and we'll talk to you guys soon.